Sometimes you reach a breaking point where you just can't pretend anymore. That's exactly what happened to me at Graham's parents' house during what was supposed to be just another tedious Sunday dinner. What I didn't expect was for my husband to call my bluff in the most humiliating way possible. Anyway, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy these stories, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. I'm Mackenzie, 34, and I've been married to Graham for 5 years. 5 long years of watching him prioritize his mommy and daddy over everything else in his life, including me. The man is 37 years old and still acts like he needs his parents' permission to breathe. It's pathetic, really. Sunday dinners at Benjamin and Sloane's house had become this weekly torture session that I couldn't escape. Every single week, like clockwork, Graham would announce we were going over there. Not ask, announce. Because apparently my schedule didn't matter. My feelings didn't matter. Nothing mattered except keeping his precious parents happy. Sloane, his mother, had this way of making these little comments that sounded sweet but cut deep. "Oh, Mackenzie, you look tired. Are you getting enough sleep?" Translation: "You look like garbage. I brought some of my famous casserole for you two to take home. I know cooking isn't really your thing." Translation: "You're a terrible wife who can't even feed my son properly." The woman made me feel like I was failing some test I didn't even know I was taking. And Benjamin, don't get me started on that man. He thought he was some kind of comedian with his inappropriate jokes about women and marriage. You know what they say about wives, Graham? They're like hurricanes. When they come, they're wet and wild. And when they leave, they take your house. Then he'd slap his knee like he'd just delivered the punchline of the century. Graham would laugh every single time like his dad was the funniest man alive instead of a creepy old man, making gross jokes about his own daughter-in-law. But the worst part, Graham never defended me, never once told his parents to back off or treat me with respect. He'd just sit there with this dopey smile, completely oblivious to how his family was treating me. When I'd try to bring it up later, he'd brush me off. "They mean well, Mackenzie. You're being too sensitive." Too sensitive. Like wanting basic respect from my husband's family was asking for the moon. I'd been building up this resentment for months, maybe even years. Every Sunday dinner felt like another brick added to this wall of anger growing inside me. I'd sit at their dining room table, forcing smiles and polite conversation, while internally screaming. These people didn't respect me, didn't value me, and worst of all, my own husband didn't seem to care. Graham worked some corporate job that required him to travel occasionally, and I swear those were the only times I felt like I could breathe. When he was gone, I didn't have to pretend to be the perfect wife who loved spending time with his overbearing family. I could just be myself without someone constantly judging my every move. The Sunday everything changed, started like all the others. Graham woke me up early, already dressed and ready to go. "Come on, babe, we need to leave in an hour. Mom's making pot roast." Like I cared what Sloane was making. I could have been perfectly happy, never eating her dry, over-seasoned pot roast again. I dragged myself out of bed and threw on the first decent outfit I could find. Graham was already in the car, probably texting his mommy to let her know we were on our way. The drive over was quiet. I'd stopped trying to make conversation during these trips months ago because Graham's mind was already at his parents' house anyway. Walking into that house felt like entering enemy territory. Sloane greeted us at the door with her fake smile and immediately started fussing over Graham like he was still 12 years old. "Oh, sweetheart, you look thin. Are you eating enough, Mackenzie? Are you feeding him properly?" There it was not even 5 minutes in, and she was already taking shots at me. Benjamin was in his usual spot in the living room, some sports game blaring on the TV. He barely looked up when we walked in. Just grunted something that might have been a greeting. The man had all the social skills of a brick wall, but somehow I was the problem in this family. Dinner was the usual affair. Sloane hovering over everyone, making sure Graham had enough food while barely acknowledging my existence. Benjamin telling his stupid stories about work and golf, while Graham hung on every word like his father was sharing the secrets of the universe. I picked at my food, counting down the minutes until we could leave. Then Sloane asked the question that broke something inside me. "So, have you two thought about Thanksgiving yet? I was hoping we could do the usual, The whole family together. It's been such a lovely tradition. The usual. The whole family. Like, I didn't have a family of my own that I might want to see during the holidays. Like, my preferences didn't matter at all. I felt my fork hit the plate harder than I intended, and suddenly everyone was looking at me. "Are you kidding me right now?" The words came out before I could stop them. The room went completely silent, except for the ticking of that annoying clock in the kitchen. Sloane blinked at me like I just started speaking a foreign language. "I just meant..." "No." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor with this awful screeching sound. "I can't do this anymore. Every single weekend it's your family. Every holiday, every birthday, every random Sunday. I can't breathe in this house." Graham tried to interrupt. "Maybe we should talk about this at home." "Why?" "So you can tell me I'm overreacting again, that they mean well and I'm being too sensitive." My voice was getting louder, but I didn't care anymore. Years of swallowed anger were finally coming out. "Your family is toxic, Graham. Your mother treats me like hired help, and your father makes disgusting comments all the time. And you're too much of a mama's boy to see what they're doing to me." The silence was so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat. Benjamin had put down his fork and was staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Sloane looked like someone had physically struck her. "I hate your family." I said the words, feeling both terrible and liberating at the same time. "I hate coming here. I hate pretending everything's fine when it's not. And I hate that you're too weak to stand up for your own wife." Then I said the words that I thought would finally wake him up, finally make him choose me over them. "I want a divorce. I'm done with this marriage and done with all of you." I expected Graham to panic, to beg, to finally realize what he was losing and start fighting for our marriage. Instead, he looked at me with this calm expression and said something that made my stomach drop. "Okay." "What?" I couldn't have heard him right. "Okay, let's get divorced." He pulled out his phone like he was checking the weather. "Don't you dare try to..." But he was already dialing. He put the call on speaker and I watched in complete shock as he called his lawyer right there at the dinner table. "Hey, sorry to bug you on a Sunday, but I need to file for divorce. My wife just asked for one at dinner. How fast can we move on this faux?" The lawyer's voice filled the room, professional and matter of fact. They started discussing timelines and paperwork, like I wasn't even there. When I tried to grab his phone, Graham just moved it out of reach and kept talking. "She literally just said she wants a divorce in front of witnesses. I'm not fighting anything. Let's move fast." This wasn't how this was supposed to go. I was supposed to have the power in this moment. I was supposed to be the one making demands while he begged me to reconsider. Instead, I was watching my husband calmly arrange to divorce me while his parents sat there in stunned silence. The car ride home was torture. I kept waiting for Graham to break to apologize for embarrassing me like that, to admit he'd overreacted. But he just drove in complete silence, like nothing had happened. Like our marriage hadn't just imploded at his parents' dinner table. At home, I tried everything I could think of to fix this. I switched tactics, going from anger to tears to seduction, anything to get through to him. "Baby, I'm sorry. Today was really stressful and I snapped. Can we just forget it happened?" "You said you want a divorce in front of witnesses," he replied, without even looking at me. "I took you at your word. Papers are being drafted tomorrow. You're punishing me for having feelings. I'm respecting your clearly stated wishes." Nothing I said made any difference. When I accused him of not fighting for us, he pointed out that I just told his parents their son was a mama's boy and their family was toxic, then demanded a divorce. What exactly was he supposed to fight for? The tears that came then weren't the manipulative kind I usually use to get my way. They were real, desperate tears from someone who just realized they'd made a terrible mistake. But it was too late. Graham had already checked out completely. He spent the night on the couch, and I lay in our bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to have the power. I was supposed to be the one calling the shots. So the next morning, Graham was gone before I woke up. He'd left a note saying he was at his lawyer's office and would be back later. I spent the day pacing around the house, calling him over and over, but he wouldn't answer. When he finally came home that afternoon, he looked different, calmer, more resolved, more... "Where were you?" I demanded. "Lawyer's office, signing divorce papers." I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. "You actually went through with it?" "I told you I would." He was speaking to me like I was a stranger, all business and no emotion. "You'll be served in a few days." "You're really doing this. You're really throwing away 5 years over one fight." "You threw them away. I'm just doing the paperwork." That's when I really started to panic. I called my sister Olivia, sobbing into the phone about how Graham was abandoning me over nothing, how I just had one emotional moment, and he was using it as an excuse to destroy our marriage. She got on the phone with Graham, immediately screaming at him for being cruel and heartless. But Graham just calmly explained that I'd asked for a divorce at his parents' dinner table, and he was giving me what I'd asked for. When she tried to argue that I'd made a mistake, he said that was between me and my lawyer. My mother, Oliver, called him too demanding to know what he'd done to her daughter. Graham's response was the same. Calm, factual, and completely unmoved by the emotional manipulation my family was trying to use on him. The divorce moved faster than I thought possible. Graham had already divided up our assets, figured out who got what, and had everything ready to go. He moved out within a week, taking only his clothes and personal belongings. He left me the house, but said he'd keep paying his half of the mortgage until we sold it. I tried everything to get him back. I showed up at his new apartment building, but security wouldn't let me up. I called his work, but his assistant said he wasn't taking personal calls. I even went back to his parents' house to apologize and asked them to convince him to stop the divorce. Sloan was polite but firm. "We appreciate the apology, Mackenzie, but this is between you and Graham. We love you both, but we'll support whatever he decides." Benjamin was less diplomatic. "You made your bed, young lady. Now you get to lie in it." The mediation was a nightmare. I sat across from Graham in some sterile conference room while lawyers discussed dividing up our life like we were splitting up a business partnership. He looked at me like I was a stranger, speaking only when directly asked a question. I tried one last time to reach him. "Can we get coffee after this? Just to talk?" "No. Please, I need closure." "You got closure at the dinner table." The judge finalized everything 3 months after that Sunday dinner. 3 months to completely dismantle 5 years of marriage. Graham got his freedom, I got the house, and half of everything we'd built together, and that was it. The worst part came about 8 months later. I was at a restaurant with some friends when I saw Graham walk in with a woman I didn't recognize. She was pretty in a natural way, laughing at something he'd said, and he looked happy? Genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen in years. I watched them from across the room, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. He wasn't just moving on, he was thriving. This woman was clearly comfortable with his family relationships, probably loved his parents and treated him with the respect and appreciation I'd never been able to give him. As I sat there watching my ex-husband enjoy his new life, I had to face some uncomfortable truths. Maybe the problem hadn't been his family, maybe the problem hadn't been him. Maybe the problem had been me all along. But I couldn't admit that, not even to myself. It was easier to stay angry, to blame Graham for being too weak to fight for our marriage, to resent his family for never accepting me. It was easier than admitting I'd destroyed the best thing in my life because I couldn't handle sharing him with people who'd loved him long before I came along. 2 years have passed since that Sunday dinner, and I'm still alone. I've tried dating, but every man I meet falls short compared to Graham. Not because he was perfect, but because he was the only one who'd ever truly loved me, despite my flaws. The only one who'd tried to make it work even when I made it impossible. I lost several friends who got tired of hearing me complain about my ex-husband and his family. My own family has started changing the subject when I bring up the divorce, exhausted by my refusal to move on. Meanwhile, Graham married that woman I saw him with at the restaurant. I heard through mutual friends that it was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. His parents love her, apparently. She fits right into their little family dynamic in a way I never could. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd handled things differently that Sunday. If I'd tried to communicate my feelings without attacking his family. If I'd been willing to compromise instead of demanding he choose between me and them. But those thoughts are too painful, so I push them away and remind myself that I'm better off without his suffocating family dynamics. The truth is, I got exactly what I asked for that night. I wanted out of those Sunday dinners, out of the family obligations, out of a marriage where I felt second place to his parents. I got all of that and more. I just never expected it to feel so empty. Looking back, I can admit that maybe I handled things poorly. Maybe I could have been more mature about the whole situation. But Graham should have fought harder for us. He should have chosen me over his family when it mattered. The fact that he didn't just proves he was never the man I thought he was. So here I am 2 years later, still angry and still alone. But at least I'm free from all that family drama, right? At least I don't have to pretend to enjoy Sloane's dry pot roast or laugh at Benjamin's terrible jokes anymore. I got my freedom, and if it's lonelier than I expected, well, that's just the price of standing up for yourself. Graham found someone who loves his whole package, family included. Good for him. I hope they're very happy together in their perfect little world where everyone gets along and no one ever questions anything. As for me, I'm still figuring things out. Still learning to live with the choices I made that Sunday evening when I finally said what I'd been thinking for years. Sometimes you have to burn everything down to see what you're really made of. I just wish the ashes didn't feel so cold.